We all know the story. The refs blew the calls, that's why we lost. My teammates didn't give me the ball enough, that's why we lost. My coach didn't play me enough, and that's why we lost. If this sounds familiar to you, if you've said things like this to yourself before, pay close attention to this video, because this internal dialogue is having a negative impact on your career. I'm Coach Daniel from Courtical Hoops, and today we're going to talk about how winners handle defeat. Losing, whether you guys like it or not, is a necessary part of your development. You cannot become the best player you can be and reach your full potential unless you've suffered major losses. Losing to your rival, losing in the biggest game of your life. These are all devastating ways to lose, and not every player can recover from it. So today we're going to look at two of the most prolific winners of all time, Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, the GOATs, have to say about losing.
I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed.
Have the fearlessness to really take those shots, you know, because you miss those shots, then you have to deal with the criticism, you have to deal with
us talking about it, right?
Right. So, you know, and a lot of times, a lot of people kind of get a little apprehensive about taking those shots because of that.
Right when we mentioned it, seemed like you started smiling already, just thinking about the word.
Yeah, well, it's always been a myth to me as to why certain people don't really like those situations because of the pressure, you know, because we've all lost games before. So it's not like by you missing that shot, you're about to face something that you will never face again or haven't faced in the past, you know what I mean? We've all come up short at, you know, one time or another. So you just gotta kind of let it all hang out and, you know, trust your skills and trust the work that you've put in.
So you can see in Michael Jordan's quote, losing is what makes him successful. He talks about all the failures he's had over and over in his career. They don't derail him, they don't affect him, they just allow him to grow. And so he has a very unique relationship with loss that a lot of players don't have. For him, it's a motivator, it's normal, which echoes a lot of what Kobe Bryant says in his clip. Loss is nothing new to him. It's not anything to be afraid of. And I think this acceptance of defeat allows him in those situations, in those deciding moments where the game's on the line, under those lights, to be completely in the moment and be able to just perform at his best. We ultimately strive to be playing in the moment, even in those situations. The NBA Finals, Jordan and Kobe have won multiple NBA championships. They've hit buzzer beaters over and over throughout their career. And I think that's the reason they're able to seize those moments is because they have that relationship with loss, that acceptance of loss as being just normal. It's not going to cripple them. It's not going to freeze them in those moments. And that's why they're the best players under pressure. But our main focus in this video today is Dirk Nowitzki and Lebron James. Two people who've had very cathartic relationships with loss. They've suffered major loss in an embarrassing fashion. And what's interesting is both these two players' legacies are forever linked. In 2006, after averaging 24.6 points per game during the regular season, Dirk Nowitzki suffered the biggest loss of his career, losing in the NBA Finals to the Miami Heat. He performed poorly, shooting only 39% from the field, and he missed a critical free throw to lose Game 3 and let Miami back into the series after being up 2-1. He would ultimately reach his goal in 2011 and become an NBA champion and a Finals MVP, coincidentally over LeBron James' Miami Heat. This loss to Dirk Nowitzki was the defining moment in LeBron's career. He just teamed up with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh to create the Big Three and was under major media scrutiny. After averaging 27 points per game in the regular season, he averaged only 17 in the finals, and he essentially choked in every fourth quarter. And so we'll get into the clips. Let's take a look.
rookie year. What was the constant thought that was in your mind that keeps you in the gym working, that keeps you in those hot gyms? What was your focus so maybe these kids can hold on to something like that as well?
Well, I just think nothing in life is going to be given to you. Nothing is going to come easy, and you have to work for it. And maybe it was even a good thing for me as a player to develop and lose that series in 06 and come out of it as a better player and as a better human being, be smarter in game situations when the game were on the line. And I took that one really to the chin in 06, and I took it rough, and I put a lot of the blame on myself. So for me I had to regroup and keep working, and ultimately it paid off.
You said that last year you were trying to prove something. And this year you realize you didn't have to do that. So how do you refocus your mind? How did you do that?
I just went back to the basics. I knew what got me to this point, and that was hard work and dedication. And I never had to prove anything to anyone. In my first 7 years, I just went out and let the game take care of itself. And last year, I tried to prove something to everybody. And I played with a lot of hate, and that's not the way I play the game of basketball. I play it with a lot of love, with a lot of passion. And that's what I got back to this year.
As you can see from the clip, these losses were the defining moment for both of these players' careers. Dirk even says what motivated him, what inspired him to stay in the gym was that loss in 2006, and then also an embarrassing defeat in the first round of the Golden State Warriors the following year after being regular season MVP. He clearly notes that he thinks it's a good thing that they lost that championship. And that these guys are, both LeBron and Dirk are not just one of the 15 players on the roster. They're the franchise players. They hold the expectation for their entire team, their coaches, and their entire city. So there's a lot more pressure on them. In 2012, LeBron would finally win an NBA championship and was named Finals MVP. During his post-game interview, the reporter asked why LeBron felt he had to play with something to prove the previous year. LeBron answers and he says he was playing with a lot of hate at the time. He was listening too much to the media and the scrutiny that he had to face. That's not him. He plays with a lot of love and a lot of passion for the game. So clearly he wasn't playing in the moment like Kobe, like Jordan, during those years because he felt like he had something to prove. This is definitely a major lesson that he wouldn't have otherwise learned if he hadn't had lost the previous year in devastating fashion. Had either of these players just had an easy path to their goal, they would not have reached their full potential. So in this video, we're going to look at 3 practical mindsets or tools that both these players used to overcome loss. 1, be realistic. 2, stay positive. And 3, take full responsibility. To become the best player you can be, you have to be realistic. You have to have a realistic assessment of the way you're playing. And when we lose, we are faced with looking at very difficult realizations about ourselves. If you're not realistic in your view of how you played, you'll never have a realistic course of action to get better. That's why film study is so important, because you can't argue with what's on tape. Let's check out some more clips.
They did a great job of every time I drove, they brought another extra defender in front of me. They did a great job defensively, very underrated defensive team. Took me out of a lot of things that I'm capable of doing or used to doing. They took us out of a lot of things that we're capable of doing, and that's getting points in the paint, that's getting to the free throw line.
I thought offensively moved the ball to the open guy and really shared the ball well. And I thought in the fourth quarter we let down a little bit, and we played more to keep the lead instead of keep attacking. So that was that's something we got to look at and address in the fourth quarter.
In these interviews, you see both LeBron and Dirk are very realistic. They're very honest, and they take an honest look at their performance and note what they need to do to get better. Playing off of that, while being honest with yourself, you have to be positive. You can't just focus on the negatives. What's the first thing we think when we lose? Some players have a delusional belief that they can do no wrong, and they completely ignore what they need to work on, and they take no responsibility for their loss. But what's way more common is we hyper-focus on our mistakes and catastrophize them. You feel like you blew the entire game, and your mistakes cost your team. It's important to not let that happen. You have to stay positive and note the good things that you did do, so you're able to focus on those and replicate them while being realistic, like we said before, and noting what you have to work on. These two, being positive and being realistic, working together, it's a very powerful tool. Dirk Nowitzki in his interviews is notoriously positive. He's always shouting out his team, his teammates, no matter what. He's always saying the good things they did. Going back to LeBron's post-game MVP speech, it was the shift from going from negative, playing with hate, to positive, playing with love, that ultimately was the biggest change in his career. That allowed him to go from having a disappointing finals the previous year to achieving his goal and being one of the greatest players to ever live. The last one, taking full responsibility, and this is the key. While some players blame themselves excessively, other players will blame outside sources excessively, like the referees, their coaches, their teammates. This is again another dysfunctional way of looking at a loss. If you do this, you're soft. If you blame the refs for everything, you're soft. The refs blew the call, like we said earlier, and that's why we lost. You have to actively reframe that to be a stronger stance. If you constantly make excuses, you're putting yourself in a victim mindset, and victims are not winners. People like that fall victim to the circumstances in their lives. They don't seize the moment, they don't take over and take charge and win. So if you're sitting there blaming everybody else, you are not going to reach your full potential. So LeBron James and Dirk Nowitzki both took full responsibility and noted what they needed to work on, stayed positive, and went into the gym and fixed it. LeBron James took responsibility for that 2011 loss. To counter the pressure and criticism he faced, he would go on what's now famously known as a media blackout, disconnecting himself from social media and turning his focus to the fundamentals, or the basics as he calls them. He even noted reading The Hunger Games to get away from the distractions and pressures of being LeBron James during that time. He would ultimately go on to win the NBA Finals again in 2013 and 2016. So yeah, final thoughts on loss. And I'm not saying you should try to lose. I'm not telling you to have that mentality, oh, I'm going to go out here and lose because that's the only way I can do it. No, I'm not saying that. When you play in the highest levels on the biggest stage, inevitably you're going to run into a loss. Competition is your way of testing yourself and allowing yourself to grow. There is no competition if you're not losing here and there. The best players put themselves in that stage. They put themselves in those situations and allow themselves to be in the moment under those lights. If you guys enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. If you did not like this video, please dislike, unsubscribe, and don't share. All right, guys, I'll see you on the next video.